autumn, and I am coming to you with quite curly hair this morning. I just thought that I would have a little bit of a change. I've been feeling a little bit under the weather lately, and I just thought that I would curl my hair. It just makes me feel really nice. So I popped a nice dress on, making myself get into the mood of spring, and I just thought I would do a little bit of golden eye makeup as well. Let me just prop you up a little bit. There we go. So I am going to be reviewing The Weight of Small Things by Julie Lancaster. Now, I have read, I think, about 6 books this year, which for some isn't a lot, but for me it is a lot, and I've been really enjoying it. Some books I have decided to read that weren't actually on my to be read this year, so I think I'm going to read more than 20 books this year, which I'm quite happy about. I think it's very doable with the rate that I'm reading at, and yes. So The Weight of Small Things was a book that someone bought me for, I think, my birthday. I think it was 2 years ago someone bought it me. One of my best friends, actually. And from first sort of looks and appearances, and my first judgment was, that's going to be a really cool book. I really like how simple the cover is, yet it's really mighty. Yeah, I love, it's a very unique title, The Weight of Small Things. It leaves a lot to the imagination. And then obviously with the gate at the front where it's broken slightly as well. So yeah, that was quite an intriguing cover, but you know, never judge a book by its cover. But let's face it, we do. If a cover looks cool, we want to read it. So yeah, I always obviously read the back of the book. So the blurb is, 9-year-old Frankie Appleton likes to count gates. One day she hopes to design the perfect gate, a gate to keep the bad things out. Little does she know that the bad things have already got in. Now her mother is dead and the only other person with a house key has disappeared. Frankie thinks she knows who it is, but first she has to prove it. So from that I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. I wasn't sure if it was going to be maybe something a little more paranormal. I wasn't sure if it was going to be crime or horror or anything like that. And when I first read that, I for some reason thought of The Babadook. Now, I've watched that film and it's really unique. It really gets you thinking. It's a very sort of moves towards the mental illness side of things, but also leaves you questioning whether it is mental illness or whether it is actually paranormal. So yeah, I know it's a very different storyline, but for some reason that is just the thoughts that I got when I read the blurb of this. So I started reading it and I was like, okay, this is unique. This is quite unique. I'll say right off the bat, I gave it 3 stars. I could have gave it less, but it's quite well written and the book is quite good. But the ending completely lets the book down. You know, for some it could be amazing, but for me, my goodness, it let me down so much, and I'd recommend the entire book other than the end, which I know sounds so stupid, but yeah, I'm so let down by it. I'm so let down by it that I actually got angry after I finished the book. So right, I'm going to refer back to my blog post, but I'm doing it on my phone because my laptop is in use by one of the beasts. So yes. So my first thoughts were, what a strange book. You follow the life of 9-year-old Frankie, who has lost almost everything in her life after the death of her mother. It's an intense read, to say the least, and it covers some very triggering, sensitive topics, so please be mindful when reading this. The same with like Eleanor Oliphant and things like that. It's quite a triggering book. So I did enjoy the majority of the book. It had a few different storylines. When I say a few, actually I mean quite a few different storylines. You're going sort of back and forth and sort of time travelling. Not time travelling, but you as the reader are seeing sort of present day and then sort of back in the day. And although some of the characters are now dead, you still get part of their character in the storyline because it goes back in time to make sense of the future. It had a few different storylines following different people, but all linked back to one another in some way, which was quite intriguing and clever of the author, Julie Lancaster. So like I said, like, you know, it is a well-written book. I just wasn't happy with the ending. Julie Lancaster is clearly very clever because the balance of information from each of the characters, it really does get you thinking. And the way it goes from sort of present day for Frankie to the past, it really does get you thinking about, oh, this character's so, you know, etc. And then how does that link to Frankie? But then it really is linked very well. It's done very, very well, in my opinion. Each of the characters' story were really messed up, and this is when I say about triggering. There is rape, there is mental illness, there is loss, there's death, there is talk of suicide, there is talk of murder, there is talk of domestic violence, abuse, yeah, lots and lots of different things. It's the kind of book where there are practically no positives or light-hearted pathways for the characters. The only set of positive relationships didn't lead anywhere, with minimal story around them, which really annoyed me because there were two really, really nice characters, and that was Frankie's grandmother and Frankie's friend, Vinny, and they practically went nowhere. It kind of just cut them short. It was like, oh, here they are, oh, here they are, oh, here's a little bit of story with Frankie and them, oh, Vinny does something really nice for her, but you never ever find out if she gets it or if that relationship blossoms, which really, really pissed me off, actually. I know that it's like, oh, leaving things to the imagination, but sometimes things do need to be sort of summed up, and for me this was not summed up. It just cut off as if she'd just stopped writing the book suddenly and decided she didn't want to write it anymore. It wasn't, there was no closure at all. And like I said, I know a lot of people are like, oh yeah, but that leaves a lot to the imagination. Yeah, but it really, for me, that is not a good ending. So it did, like I said, time jumps each chapter, which spoke about characters who were already deceased, showing their part played in the past to the story in the present, if that makes sense. You also jump to different time parts of each person's story, and it all comes together in the present to make a huge, complicated and mind-boggling reality for Frankie. The funny thing is, and this is one of the only sort of wow, kind of big, huge epiphany kind of things, is we as readers are the only ones who know the truth, which gives quite a sense of power for us, but also frustration for the characters, particularly Frankie, because literally she's a 9-year-old girl, which, like, her mindset is definitely not the age of a 9-year-old girl. But yeah, like, she just wants to find out what happened to her mum and sort of what happened to her dad, and literally gets no answers at all. But somehow we know, as the overlookers of her story, that she doesn't know, and neither does anyone at all in the story. So yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the majority of the book, but I really didn't like the ending. It was almost like it was cut short and the author had just stopped writing, or decided to cut the entire story off at a random point, giving no answers whatsoever to so many mysteries within this book. And when I say so many mysteries, I mean there are so many mysteries in this book. Each character's story has some sort of mystery that it's so awful. I cannot even come to tell you how awful the character stories are. They are, every single one of them. You know, some of them have lost a child, some of them have accidentally killed a child, some of them can't conceive, some of them can't adopt or foster because they seem too keen to have children. There is, like I said, murder, potential suicide. There is a serial killer within this book that literally doesn't get explained whatsoever, and you find out literally the last few chapters, and you kind of go, where the hell did that come from? And yeah, it's a very, very cluttered book with amazing mystery that just doesn't get summed up. So yeah, as you can tell, my god, this book really, really, really annoyed me, because I took like a week reading it, and I was like, oh god, I really need to get back into this. Oh my god, it's so juicy, there's so much stuff going on. And then it just fell flat at the end. I literally threw the book to the other side of the room, looked at my partner and was just like, I couldn't speak for ages because I was so captivated by this book, and it really let me down. And no one I know has read it, so I can't share my passionate rants with them. Let me have a look. Yeah, it really disappointed me and was not the kind of ending that I would have anticipated, wanted or written myself to cap off the story for the sake of consumers' enjoyment and in general. And I know that writing a book isn't always about pleasing people, or it's not always about the consumers or the entertainment part of it. And I know that for some writers it's like, it's, you know, it's an outlet for them and they write this story that they had in mind. But to a certain extent, if you're going to sell your book, then I'd assume that you would want it to be, well, good for the consumers, because isn't that the whole point? And I don't know if any other people would feel this way, but I definitely don't think that this was sort of user-friendly written, because there was more disappointment than anything else. It does take you on like an amazing journey, but the way I describe it is like a long car ride to your holiday destination. You spent hours and hours driving, seeing the countryside, the animals, the homes, and the landscapes, the general scenery, and it looks beautiful and it's so interesting. There's so much to it. You've got the colours, the textures, the, you know, the breeze on your face, and just, you know, the sun. And then the car runs out of gas and you never reach the destination. It felt so underwhelming considering it was such a dynamic story, and that is how I describe it. A long car journey where it's just an amazing journey and you're so excited to get to your destination, and then you just run out of gas and you just don't get there. You turn back, and then yeah, you can't end that story on a positive because you never ever reach that destination. So yeah, that's how I describe it, if that makes any sense. It makes sense to me, but yeah, so that's how I feel. Overall, it's a well-written book, and the storyline is intense, but the ending fell short and flat. It could be a great ending for some, but for me it wasn't a great experience at all, and I felt very annoyed at the ending and very let down. Some may think it could be mysterious, which, let's face it, it is very mysterious, and some might think it's like this awesome cliffhanger, like a cliffhanger that makes you feel frustrated but happy. But for me, this was not a cliffhanger, but more of a falling off the cliff after standing there balancing for ages. How do you feel about The Weight of Small Things, and would you read it? That's my question. Would you read it? Because I was really, really intrigued by this. I don't think the blurb makes any sense after reading this book personally. It makes a little bit of sense, but not a lot of sense. And also don't understand, I mean, I could have just forgotten, but I don't really understand the birds, and I don't understand the title of it either. It's a nice title, just when I think about the story, there's no correlation, unless Frankie draws a bird. That's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, so overall, like, it doesn't really come down to a gate either. The gates are spoken about a lot in the story because obviously Frankie wants to design gates, and she sort of counts gates, she looks at gates online, she reads books about gates, and her dad was like a architect kind of builder, so she shares that sort of hope, the same hope that he had. But it doesn't really tie it up. So yeah, I don't know if there's any more I can say about this. And honestly, like, if Julie Lancaster, you were ever watching this review or reading the review on my blog, I want you to know that I don't hate this book. I don't even dislike this book. I thought this was so intelligently written, this was so clever, the storyline was absolutely fantastic, it was so dynamic, and there was so much to it, and you organised it in such a beautiful way. It was like a beautiful cluttered mess, and it was all put in its own place. You know, the storylines were so great, and it all led up to one amazing storyline, but it fell so flat at the end. And I would love to know your intentions of what you perceive this ending to be like, and that's the same as other people who've read this book. I'd love to know what you think of the ending, because like I said, it was a really well written book. The ending was just so flat and so sudden. Like, when I finished this book, I thought there could at least have been another 3 or 4 chapters, even one more chapter. I just feel like there was just something missing, and that something was very big. So yes, thank you so much for watching this, and honestly, it's just like The Woods by Vanessa Savage. It's not a bad book, there's just something missing from it for me. There's just something that wasn't there that would have made it a 5-star book in my opinion. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I would absolutely love to know your opinion of this book, if you've read it or whether you would read it. I hope you're not put off by my review, because some people think differently, and we all sort of had these different perspectives and, you know, thoughts about things, especially endings. I'm huge on book endings, and I'm very critical of endings. So yes, thank you again. If you have enjoyed this, I would love if you could go and check out my other book reviews, or if you're into other things, I have makeup videos and also product reviews, and also the Books That Matter subscription review, which I will be doing for the next 3 months, as well as a new subscription review I will be doing as well. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this, and if you like it, then give me a good old thumbs up, which would really help. Subscribe and even share this video. It would be really helpful for me, but no worries if not anyway. It's really lovely that you've come along. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!